who's going to listen to us on Stripe Dialogue. Today, we are going to discuss about Indo Myanmar border management. I will first essentially give you all the settings as to why we are discussing this issue. But before that, let me welcome Lieutenant General PC Nair, DG Assam Rifle. A very warm welcome to you, General Nair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Honored to be
Uh,
here.
in fact, I would like to tell our audience that me and General Nair go back a long way. We commanded the battalion almost at the same time. Of course, I was on my way out and he was on his way in as the CO in Faizabad, a place very close to where we are having this program from Lucknow. He has had a very, very wide experience as far as Northeast is concerned. He commanded the unit in Assam, and he commanded a brigade in the Northeast. He was IGR North, the area which came under so much of spotlight and attention a few months back. And thereafter, he's the DGAR. In fact, you couldn't have asked for anyone better than him to actually handle the situation which is happening in the area of Northeast. To be very precise, Manipur and Nagaland. These are the two states which are relatively more sensitive as compared to the other states of Northeast now, since more or less the situations are under control. On and off, you will find some activities taking place also in the southern Arunachal Pradesh, but that's very, very limited. So, with that, I would like to briefly set the stage as to why we are doing this discussion today. See, Northeast, everything was going very fine. सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा चल रहा था. Suddenly, a situation became very tense and violent in Manipur. And thereafter, people started looking for reasons, causes. We will not we will not go into we will not go into the details of what happened in Manipur. We look at the bigger scene, which is the entire border with Myanmar, because situation in Northeast can go bad from any place, right? So for that, border management is a very critical issue. As you know, the Myanmar border is around 1,600 odd kilometers, which is a very vast border. Uh, a brief history about Myanmar. I would say that initially it was under the Bengal presidency, East India Company. Thereafter, it became a province of British India. Then it separated from British India in 1935, and finally it got its freedom in 1948. So somewhere Myanmar has an India connect in the sense that it was part of the larger Greater India uh, up to at least 1935. It was also famous for extractive economy. By that, what I mean is that British India basically was interested only in extracting the minerals, resources. Like from Assam, it was extracting coffee, tea, etc. Similarly, from the Myanmar side, gold and teak, etc. So it was only being used for extraction. So therefore, there was an exploitation. People were being neglected by the British India, which later on actually developed into problems. If you look at the trade ties even today, out of the ASEAN trade which we have with India, 10% is with Myanmar, which is a fairly high state of trade. So we have connectivity both economically. So our look east policy, when it got transformed to act east policy, it does have some weight. But the terrain is very underdeveloped, which I am sure General Nair will cover that. Large number of training camps are there of these militants on either side. It becomes very difficult to manage them. Large scale narcotics, arms, and human trafficking, etc., also takes place. It's a remote, difficult area with porous borders. Then you have people to people ties are very thick. As I told you, that it was part of greater British India. Then, so there was a FMR regime, which I'm sure John Nair will cover that. Communication and fencing is the issue between both sides. And finally, from the Myanmar side, they have very limited security forces to control such a large area. In comparison, India has a fairly large amount of security forces. Well, that is the overall setting in which we are going to discuss this whole issue, because we feel if that Myanmar border management is good, then half of our problem which happened in places like Manipur, etc., would get automatically controlled. I won't say that they will disappear, but they will get controlled. So, over to you, Jan Nair. I would like you to highlight the challenges which which are faced by the Indian security forces in managing the Indo-Myanmar border. As you know, we have a policy of one force, one border, and Assam Rifle is responsible for the Myanmar border. Over to you, Jan Nair.
Sir, thank you so much, firstly, for having me over. Um, you already mentioned the past association, the wonderful association that we've had. And the moment you asked me to be here today, I jumped at the chance. Firstly, I could interact with you. And secondly, bring out certain aspects about the Northeast, which by and large people of our country are not aware. Uh, and personally speaking, like you brought out in your initial introduction, the very kind introduction that you did, sir. Uh, a vast majority of my service has been in the Northeast. This is actually the 22nd year, and next year when I superannuate, it will be 23
Wow.
years in the Northeast, sir.
So I
So
think
Northeast,
they should appoint you as the advisor of Northeast. You're the right candidate for that.
sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So Northeast essentially is very, very close to my heart, and thank you for setting the stage to give a brief introduction of the Indo-Myanmar border and how and what it means for us to give it the importance that it deserves. You did mention about ASEAN, sir, but more importantly, our Act East policy, which is going to be our future actually. For far too long, we've been focusing on the western borders
Yeah.
and having not made much headway. We've realized that it is in the Northeast where our future, whether it is political, cultural, economic, it's all here because of the huge linkages that we've had here, but over a period of time we've forgotten. So I'll cover these as and when the questions from your side comes up. But to begin with,
Yeah.
the first question that you gave as to what are the challenges that we face, the Indo-Myanmar border itself is 1,643 kilometers long,
Long.
sir. Uh, of this, the northern part, about 136 kilometers, is unmarked. That particular part of the boundary is unmarked, and that is what touches the LAC with China's. And why it is unmarked is because of the terrain. You already stated the problems related to terrain. The terrain here is very, very challenging, very thick forests and rivers, streams, a total lack of roads, but things are changing. Uh, but notwithstanding, things are still difficult. And that 136 kilometers, which I said in the earlier part, is an area that we have to focus on. I shall cover about that also if some questions come. But the
Yeah.
challenges per se, because of course, the terrain, are there are wide gaps. We call it a porous border. It is not a porous border. It is an open border. There is
Mhm.
nothing that stops anyone.
Okay.
So it is not physically possible for our troops to cover every square inch of the ground. And given the common ethnicity, cultural ties that lie across the border, it is very difficult again to control the movement of the people because of the existence of what is called as the free move regime.
Yeah.
Now, for people who are not aware of this, what this essentially means is that all along the border, 16 kilometers either side, all border villages that exist, and there are a total of 832 of them, both sides. So these villages can go into each other's area and stay for a period of 3 days. Was the case earlier, but now they stay up to 14 days, and then they're
Yes.
supposed to go back. There are no passports required, so
Mm.
it becomes very difficult to establish as to who are these people, are they the right people, as a consequence of which there are other activities which happen, movement of insurgents, transshipment or movement of smuggled and contraband goods.
Just,
um,
just Jan Nair, just before we go further, Can you highlight? You told about the border being absolutely open, not even porous, uh, and you mentioned about something about fencing. Do you think something is being done on the fencing of these areas, or we are still in some kind of a problem as far as laying of fencing is concerned, both international and as well as given the terrain of that area?
So ideally, we would want, for security reasons, if you see purely from the security perspective, because of the movement of insurgents on both sides of the border that happens, uh, the ideal thing would have been to fence the complete border. But you have issues. One is, of course, the terrain I spoke of, and then is the common ethnicity.
Okay.
Then is land across. They have, for example,
Okay.
in Nagaland, there is a tribe called as Kaimungan tribe, which is in
Hmm.
the northern or eastern part of Nagaland. So
Okay.
the 35% of Kaimungans are in India, while 65% are in Myanmar. And these
Okay.
35% Kaimungans have about 7,400 hectares of land across, which they go to cultivate. So this is an issue. Of course, there are solutions. We can have fence and then a gate made for them to pass,
Yeah.
but that's a distant shot.
Hmm.
Uh, but in terms of the question that you ask about fencing, the government of India had taken a decision in early 2020 that
Hmm.
we should have something called as a hybrid surveillance system, which
Okay.
is actually a mixture of physical fence as also technological fence. It'll have cameras, it'll have drones, it'll have sensors. Essentially, in areas where it is difficult to construct a physical obstacle, as also allow uh, transborder movement. Now,
People to move around.
this decision was taken in 2020. Currently, the uh, the thought that is there is to have 80% of this kind of a HSS or hybrid surveillance system in Manipur
Okay.
and 20 kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh. This is
Okay.
what is being, this is latest, which I'm telling you. But in this, there is also a pilot project which is going to start very soon. A 1 kilometer pilot project, both in southern Arunachal Pradesh, which is Tirap Changlang Longding district in that general area, closer to Pangsao Pass actually, and also in Manipur, another 1 kilometer of pilot project. And based on this, then in the future, we would expand 80 kilometers in Manipur, 20 in Arunachal, and then of course in the other states as and when they agree to that.
So work is on, but it will take a fairly long time for it to become a
It will.
foolproof kind of
It surely will.
system.
It surely will.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. You were talking about the FMR and then beyond.
Yeah, I was talking of the challenges of the movement of people, the contraband, the smuggling that happens, and now because of the disturbance that is there in Myanmar, uh, the states that are opposite us are Sagaing in the north and Chin state in the south. There has been fairly excessive violence there, and the Myanmar armed forces have used air force also to bombard some of these villages here. So whenever the levels of violence or bombings increase, you have these refugees coming into these states, and particularly Mizoram, and to some extent in Manipur and Nagaland, very less. That is
Okay.
how it is. If I have to give you figures, from the time this disturbance started, sir, there were about 35,000 odd people who came. Uh,
Okay.
Most of them have been, 15,000 of them have already been sent back.
Okay.
The remainder majority of them are in Mizoram, close to 20,000.
Okay.
They are there, and they are being given shelter there.
So the UN Refugees Commission on Refugees is also looking after them, or it is purely
No,
Indian?
sir.
Indian. Yeah.
Actually, uh, it is again because of the common ethnicity.
Okay.
The state has taken a call that they will provide shelter to them because they consider them as their kith and kin. Uh,
Brethren.
though we are not signatory to the UNHCR rulings, but they are theirs
Okay.
on humanitarian grounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay.
and and I just also would like to clarify, since we interact with these refugees, what we come to know is that these people are all willing to go back. It
Hmm.
is only that there is this fighting that is happening. They're not very comfortable, and because here they have no jobs, they're just locked up or present in camps, refugee camps, and doing some menial jobs. So they are surely looking forward to go back whenever the situation there stabilizes.
Okay. So, you mentioned about the illegal, trade, etc., and especially narco smuggling, and you would also understand that Afghanistan has entirely burnt down or destroyed its poppy fields in Afghanistan. So there is almost 100% blanket on production of opium as far as Afghanistan is concerned. So what I believe is that the Golden Crescent, the people from there, those guys who are trading in this kind of opium trade, have all shifted towards Golden Triangle, which is the area opposite your area of responsibility. So this has become now a major challenge as far as border management is concerned. How do you think the current state is, and how are you managing it? If you are, because you will not be directly managing it, you'll be managing it with the customs and other guys, but you would be providing the necessary security and other arrangements. So, can you throw some light on this, the challenges as far as drug trafficking is concerned?
Yes, sir. I will like to highlight three things from this
Hmm.
question that you just asked, sir. First,
Okay.
you were absolutely right. Uh, in Afghanistan, they've gone hammer and tongs against poppy cultivation, particularly
Yeah,
so from March, April this year.
correct.
So the cultivation has shifted here to this region. Now, if I have to give you in terms of figures, sir, and let me begin by from the year 2021.
Yeah.
2021, we caught Assam Rifles. We caught contraband worth 1,400, 415 crores, sir. 1,415 crores.
Okay.
Now, that came down last year to about 835 crores. This year, again, we are now in the month of August. This has spiked up to 1,135. So
Okay.
I presume this would reach the 2021 figures. And
Mhm.
uh, the point that I wish to highlight here is 2021 was also the COVID year. There was hardly any
Okay.
movement uh, that is happening. Yet, all this kind of contraband has moved because
Yes.
one of the reasons, of course, is as part of the free move regime, the
Mm-hmm.
people who move across the border can carry some what you call as head loads. Anything that
Okay.
they carry on their head that they can carry, they can carry. You cannot stop them. So the
Okay.
figures are quite alarming. And the point related to this, what I wish to highlight, in the last 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
these figures are not specific only to India. The poppy cultivation and the contraband catch has exponentially increased in Thailand, in Myanmar, in Laos.
Okay.
Uh, so these are the countries which are all in the neighborhood of or in the vicinity of this what you're calling as the Golden Triangle, but we now of late have started calling it death triangles.
What triangle?
Death triangles
Oh,
instead of
death
golden
triangle.
triangles.
Death triangle.
There's nothing golden about it. It's a death triangles.
Yes, you're right. Actually, we should call it with a name which gives conveys the message of what actually will happen if we keep encouraging this kind of a thing. India, incidentally, is having over 11,000 crore people who are drug addicts today, which is a
That's
very
true.
using some form of drugs or the other, which is a very large number as far as India is concerned. And especially if the youth, which is our working dividend, if it gets affected by this, it is even bad. Yeah.
And the largest in the country, so incidentally, is Mizoram's. In the
Oh my.
90s, Manipur used to be called as the drug capital, but that has now shifted to Mizoram. Mizoram is where you have maximum people indulging in drug abuse in the countries.
Okay. Okay. So, anything else you would like to add about the drug trafficking in terms of what kind of arrangements do you have? I mean, uh, what kind of a relationship you have with the customs and the other people involved in the counter drug trafficking activities? Or
So one of the important things that is required is, while we are there, surely there is also a necessity of more police stations along
Hmm.
the Indo-Myanmar border. And
Okay.
for your information, so along this 1,643 kilometers, we had only 21 police stations till last year.
Okay.
Uh, in the year again 2020, a decision was taken that we need to scale this up at least four times, at least 80 should come up.
Hmm.
So in the last 1 year, from 2021, we have progressed to 25s, which is
Okay.
still inadequate. Uh,
Yeah.
and
20,
given the fact that we
25.
don't have police powers, Assam Rifle doesn't have police powers, there is
Okay.
that much of necessity for them to be there.
So you got to
So,
carry them along for any activity which you do.
yes, sir. Like if it's a case of pushing them back again, we need the police guys to be there in case, of course, at times there are women, children. So we need the police for all our activities there.
Okay, Jan Nair, what we have seen is that uh, there are three very sensitive states along the Indo-Myanmar border, and which is the Arunachal in the north, then you have Nagaland,
Nagaland.
and then you have Manipur. And you can include Mizoram also to some extent because of the current dynamics of people migrating into Mizoram. So automatically, if there is no job for these guys, they would indulge in such activities. So what is the level of cooperation which you are enjoying, because you are dealing with four states, right? So you would be having different experiences of different places. Could you highlight something about the mechanism and any suggestions to improve that mechanism of cooperation between various states, state security forces and the central security forces, including the army, because army, after all, is controlling a large sector, a large tract of this particular border, internally,
Sure.
not on the border itself, but internally it is controlling a lot. Yeah.
So, sir, I spoke of the shortage of the police, state police. In
Hmm.
addition, there is this trans-border trade that happens.
Okay.
Essentially, trade used to happen from two places. One is More in Manipur, and
Hmm.
one was Sokhautar in Mizoram. These are the
Okay.
two places from where trade used to happen. From the time the COVID started, this trans-border trade has stopped. Um, Yet, the movement of people, headloads which I mentioned, that carries on. People are still moving both sides of the border. But
Okay.
for trade to happen, what is institutionally there is, firstly, there is a integrated check post at More. More, because 90% of Indo-Myanmar border trade happens through More, sir.
Which is
We
in
also
Manipur.
have something
Which is
which
in
is in Manipur,
Manipur. Yeah.
and of course, no movement of vehicles is happening now. Next is something called as the LCS, that is the Land Customs Station. We have one at Nampong in Arunachal Pradesh and one at Zokhautar in Mizoram. I spoke of this ICP and LCS. These two agencies are supposed to have people from the customs, the excise, narcotics, uh, the state police, CBI, multiple agencies. So,
Okay.
to effective, if you have to effectively function, unfortunately, it is not as well staffed as it should be. And now, of course, there is no problem. But other than this, you also have border hearts.
Hmm.
You are aware where traditionally for decades or
Yeah.
centuries people have been indulging in these markets. So we have
Right.
one at Mansau Pass in Arunachal Pradesh and one at uh, More also. Then we also have something called as the ITC, International Trading Center. This is
Hmm.
in Nagaland. In three places. One is at a place called Dan, one is at a place called Lungwa, and one is at a place called Awangku. So these are the multiple modes which which am I audible, sir?
You were off communication for a while. You could repeat those three places so that we can hear you.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, yeah, you're getting cut, but it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm saying these are the multiple. I'll just repeat those. You have you have then you have the LCS,
Hmm.
LCS, which is the Land Custom Station. Then you have Border Hearts, and then you have the International Trade Center (ITCs). So these are multiple agencies that are there, organizations through which trade happens. So there is a necessity of having adequate staff in all these. Uh,
I think Jan Nair is,
so I was saying, so
yeah.
going forward, as and when the trade
I think Jan Nair's communication is little off till he comes online. Basically, what he was referring to was that there are these three agencies which control the yeah.
whenever trade resumes,
Uh, so I think we will wait for a while before this communication gets through. Currently, Jan Nair's communication is not
ये क्या
coming
प्रॉब्लम
through.
है यार?
Mind you, he's on a very remote area. He's speaking from Shillong, so there are some communication issues. I'm sure
ये
it will
इंटरनेट
be
का
sorted out very soon.
क्या
Basically,
प्रॉब्लम है देखो यार,
bas- basically what he was referring to was
जल्दी.
that there are customs authorities which are of three natures. One, and they are deployed all along the Indo Myanmar border, both in Nagaland and Manipur, as well as in Arunachal Pradesh in a place called Pangsau. Till he comes online, I would carry on with the Indo Myanmar border management issues in which are being faced by our country. Firstly, as he has already highlighted, that the staff at these places is very limited. This needs to be enhanced. That is the first issue. Then there are local police, which is there in Myanmar, which is there in Manipur, Nagaland, and Arunachal Pradesh. While the cooperation between the police forces is fairly okay in Arunachal, but in places like Nagaland and Manipur, it is slightly suspect. Especially Manipur, it is slightly suspect. So there are sometimes sometimes problems which occur. Let me see if he has. Yeah, is okay now.
Yes, a better. Of course,
Yeah, now it's better.
this
Now
is
it's
a
better.
part of the challenges that we have in the northeast.
Yeah, I was just telling the people that internet is very difficult in the remote areas. Yeah, go ahead. You were talking about the various.
I was talking of all these agencies which are there. They
Hanji.
need to be staffed adequately, sir, uh, to ensure that none of these wrong activities happen.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the government has plans in place to stop them once trade happens. Currently, it is
Okay.
not, but I'm sure it will happen once the trade starts.
Okay. What about with the state police forces? How's the and the army? These two army, state police, and the Assam Rifles. How's the arrangement? Is it the same in all the three places, or there are some challenges in place A, place I mean state A, state B, state C? Any views on that?
So of course, each state is different. The dynamics are different.
Mm-hmm.
The way they look at people across is different. Is
Mm-hmm.
this? It's for all the states. Now
Okay.
you'll be aware of. I spoke of this border fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably you should be aware that Mizoram had passed in its assembly. They passed a resolution that they will not allow a border fence.
Border
Uh,
fence.
Border fence. So similarly, there are reservations in Nagaland also. So if there are reservations at the political level, obviously that will percolate down to the police force also.
Okay.
Uh, but in terms of with the army, Indian army, of course, no problem. But we are also interacting with the Myanmar army regularly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that was my going to be my next question as to what kind of arrangement do you have with the Myanmar army, if any, to control the situation or control the border. So you could throw a light on that. But before that, you would like to say something about the Assam Rifle Army cooperation. I know the officer lot in both the forces are from the Indian Army. So the level of coordination and cooperation is definitely very very high as compared to the other border guarding forces, where there are two different distinct streams of people who join these forces. So as far as that is concerned, it would be good. But anything else would you like to add to that?
So the assimilation or working alongside the army, we've never had problems. We were doing the
Hmm.
same thing. But what
Okay.
is different now is from the time northern the status on the northern borders changed.
Hmm.
Army has withdrawn from the counter-insurgency role that they were doing.
Okay.
Now the
Okay.
complete counter-insurgency, except for one brigade of the army, rest all is being handled by Assam Rifles.
Sam,
So we are in a dual mode, border guarding as also counter-insurgency.
so, Janai, how does this affect your operational time task also? Because now uh, your I would say uh, your scope of work has been increased or enhanced of internal security as well as border guarding, and during operations you are supposed to do something else also. So does that affect your method of functioning? Because you see your border guarding is very I mean, not border guarding, your operational role is even much more expansive than what it is today. It's today restricted only to Myanmar, but it goes beyond that. So does it pose any additional challenges to you?
It surely does, so, because of the peculiar situation or the roles that we play. We spoke
Mhm.
of border guarding and counterinsurgency. These are the roles that are known to
Yeah.
everyone. But today,
Yeah.
what we are facing in Manipur is something very new, abstract.
Yeah.
None of us, surely you and I have never faced this kind of a situation, sir.
Correct.
But
Correct.
here lies a situation where for the past 130 days, our people are out in the open and still not knowing when this will end. So this is a new role, but the other role that people generally forget is also the conventional role that
Yeah.
we undertake along with the armies.
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
again, for the sake of the viewers, sir, when 1962 happened, in all the valleys in Arunachal Pradesh, starting from Tawang in the west, as you keep going eastward, Subansiri, Siang, Siom, and Lohit Valley. In all these valleys, the people at the absolute forefront were Assam
Yes.
Rifles.
Brother Sam Rifle.
Were Assam Rifles, and in section posts, most of them in section posts. They were the
Mhm.
guys who actually bore the brunt. While
Initially.
in the army, yes, we all have our battle honor days and various regiments celebrate all these days. But
Mhm.
we have a similar thing in Assam Rifles also, where many of our sections fought last man, last bullet. These are stories which are not known.
Yeah.
What happens is traditionally every year we train along with the army for a conventional role also, and
Mhm.
as and when the necessity, whenever it arises, almost 80% of our forces would be deployed along with the army on the northern borders.
Uh, can you tell me any what kind of arrangements are there with the Myanmar army as far as managing the border is concerned?
Uh, so you did make a brief mention about this border and the army when you gave your
Yeah.
introductory remarks. What I wish to highlight is, seen from the Myanmar perspective, this is the most peaceful border for them.
Hmm.
They share boundaries with five countries, with us, with Thailand, with Laos, with Bangladesh, and of course, the most troubled border is the Chinese border for them.
Okay.
Um some of your viewers would not be aware that there is bordering China. There is a particular group known as the Wa Army, Wa State Army, which has
Okay.
a strength of about 22,000. They have their artillery guns, they have their armored personal carriers, they have their own tanks, all provided by the Chinese, and they fight the Myanmar armies. So this is
That's
the
very
most
strange. That's very strange. I mean, on face of it, the Chinese are supposed to be pro the military junta, but here you find that they're also kind of supporting the rebels out there in Kachin. Basically, they are the Karen state is what you're referring to, Karen and
current touching both.
Karen Kachin both. So that's quite surprising. So that would be having an effect on the trans-border movement as far as India and Myanmar are concerned.
Sir, I look at it this way: Myanmar is out of compulsion; they have to have good relations with China,
Hmm.
um, because of the stranglehold that China exerts over them economically, military aid, politically, and otherwise. They're the ones who always bail them out in the UN Security Council. Uh,
Okay.
but coming back to your question, sir, at the functional level with the Myanmar army, uh,
Hmm.
we have uh, at the lowest level, post level interaction, where our company commanders and COs interact with their counterparts across. And like you very rightly brought out, they are very thinly deployed along the borders,
Yeah. Yeah.
very sparse. And starting from the post level meeting, we go right up to the highest level, where our course, 3 corps, that is, interacts with what they call as their Northwestern Command
Hmm.
on a regular basis. And between them, they have this meeting called as Regional Border Cooperation meeting, RBC meeting, every 6 months. Once
Okay.
on our side, once across.
Yeah.
So it is institutionalized, and all issues that are there get ironed out during these meetings.
Okay. So there is a cooperation, but limitation of resources is what makes the task difficult, and therefore the transgression takes place on either side of the smuggler, the human trafficker. This is what you're trying to say. So let's go to the next question, which I had, which is basically regarding. I would like to also tell the viewers that I am deliberately not discussing the internal situation of Manipur, because I think a number of videos, number of discussions have already taken place on that. So we are focusing our talk today on border management. Uh, a lot of people have been raising fingers on the Assam Rifles and quality, etc., etc. Uh, their partiality or impartiality. All these things have been spoken about very loosely. Could you just make our audience assured as to what kind of troops the Assam Rifles are? I'm telling you from my own experience, I was in the NSG and I used to get the largest contribution which I used to get was from Assam Rifle among the Central Police Armed Forces, and they were the best as far as all the competitions, etc. They would be winning all the high risk tasks, they would be going in. So that's my experience of Assam Rifle. What is your take on the Assam Rifles? And also, you could cover out here only the need for AFSPA in this particular part of the country.
So, as I see, there are 3 things that you asked. So one is the multiple allegations that have been raised against us.
Mm.
Uh, then the ASPA, whether there is a need for this or not.
Mhm.
And the third, I think you were alluding to, is the quality of the
Quality
soldiers
first. Yeah, yeah.
that
Basically,
we have.
first and third are almost mixed to each other.
Yes, let me
Mixed.
start with the quality of soldiers.
Yeah.
This is my third association, fourth actually, with Assam
Fourth.
Rifles. Sir. I started here as a company commander in Manipur,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and the assimilation with army is so good. You can hardly differentiate between the army soldiers and the Assam Rifle soldiers.
Okay.
Uh, till few years back, we used to also have honorary ranks, honorary Subedar Major, honorary ranks, which got stopped because it's not there in any of the other CAPFs. Uh,
CAPS.
so it's not there. So quality wise, they're as good, and probably being DJ, I may say probably a little better also, uh,
Mm-hmm.
purely because they're entirely in the Northeast. Their entire life,
Okay.
the amount of service they put in also more than the army. Army guys, army soldiers generally retire around in their 40s, whereas here
Yeah.
a soldier is in service till the age of 60. So close to
Correct.
40 years he's spending in the Northeast, entirely in the Northeast. So that makes him a Northeast specialist. Um, So that is addressed. The second is was about the allegations that have been raised against us, and in which you also asked about the composition.
Yeah.
There was a certain point of time when about 65% of our soldiers were from the northeast. This was
Yeah.
still 1984. From
Correct.
1985, we have become an all India, all class composition. Today, 80% of our men are all India, all class. So, if that be so, there is surely no need for us to be biased in any way.
Yeah.
What works to our advantage also works to our disadvantage. I told you of the long years that we spend here in the Northeast. Our soldiers, 80% of our forces are either in Nagaland or Manipur,
Okay.
which means there is a story also that when army officers come here on deputation and when they start using GPS, compass, and all, the Assam Rifle soldiers just tell them, "साहब इसको एक साइड में रख दो. आपको अगर वहां जाना है, मैं आपको 4-5 ऑप्शंस देता हूँ और हर सबको advantages disadvantages भी बताऊँ." That is how it is. That is how the system works.
Correct.
That is how good the soldiers are.
Yeah.
So uh, there is purely no ground for any of these allegations. They are all misplaced and being done with a purpose. And I constantly tell people, don't reinforce this narrative, because uh, the person who benefits or the country which benefits is our adversary. uh,
Absolutely.
at absolute no cost, uh, to kind of point fingers towards your security forces, towards your army, is the worst thing to be done.
It
And
gives
if
no benefit. It gives no benefit to our country or whatsoever. Neither to the
that's
country, nor to the state, nor to the people.
Yes, sir. So if somebody says that we are biased towards a particular community, it is not the case.
Yeah.
I can give you statistics of the people that we've rescued, people we've prevented from being killed or houses burned. It is almost equal in number of both communities. We've
Okay.
helped them escape from one part of the state to the other, transshipped them, put them in transit camp in our camps. So all that has been done. Um, and what we are also doing is we are in the buffer zones which separate the communities. And when we are in the buffer zone, we prevent both the communities from going into each other's area and indulging in violence. So when we do that, we get all these negative remarks about us.
Yeah.
And you
You take the flick. You take the
yeah,
flick.
we take a flag. And all
Yeah.
these so-called videos which are going around on the social media are
Yeah.
only part of the story. They've been
Yeah.
selectively doctored in a manner to bring us in poor light. And
Yeah.
but everyone at the highest level knows that is not the case.
Mm.
Uh, and their last part was about aspas.
After.
This is there was a conscious effort to gradually reduce aspa from
Yeah.
many of the states, districts. Um, if now, so there is also a call by many people to now reimpose ASPA
Yeah.
for multiple reasons. Uh, but the point I wish to make here is, if we have the complete cooperation of the state police, like it is there in JNK, we
Okay.
will be able to handle this much better, the
Okay.
current situation. So
Okay.
ASPA is essentially for insurgency, and this is not an insurgency related situation. It is a civil disturbance. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a place where two communities are indulging in violence, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
stop them. They are our people. They're like
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So I feel that it can be managed uh, if we have the full cooperation of the state police.
Okay. You have sent out a message in this particular thing that AFSPA need not be there because insurgency like situation is not there. It's more of a inter nasli विवाद चल रहा है. There is a confrontation between two communities is what is the major reason or major cause of this. And I would
But
say that
I would like to clarify further, sir. Now, in all
Mhm.
this, what has happened is also you would have read in the media that there are insurgents who have come across.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is the point which I was
you
trying to get
were
at.
aware, you were aware of the weapons, 4,000 odd weapons, six lakhs plus ammunition, which is out. That is
Yeah,
an area of concern. So tomorrow, if these land in the hands of insurgents, we may have no option but to get back to ASPA. I'm just
yeah,
talking of the current as on date. But
yeah,
going forward, if at all the situation worsens, if these weapons go into the hands of these insurgents, and if many other pick up arms, then probably we'll have to reconsider.
Okay.
So we
So
have
we
to
are now,
keep our.
yeah, yeah. So we are now coming to the last question before we take the audience question. You have had a vast experience, 22 years, going strong, still possibly some more time to be in that area. So you have your hands full, right? You have to manage the situation possibly. What should be done to get the whole thing under lid or under control so that there is space for negotiations by the political entities which are involved in this. Although my own perception is that it's we spoil a party only at that level, because the security forces do a lot of work to get the things under control, and again things start erupting in these areas. We have a history in this particular place, northeast. 1957 onwards we are actually involved in some kind of insurgency or the other. One group goes down, the other group comes in. There is no lasting peace which we are seeing, except for last few years. It was uh, quite a good thing which was occurring. Nagaland was under quiet, and so was Arunachal, so was Manipur. Okay, so your some quick suggestions on what we should do, both at the at the strategic level and at the operational level.
Are we talking about Manipur, sir,
I mean, the
or are we
entire
talking
thing,
about as such?
entire Northeast. You can include Manipur also as part of that
Okay,
response,
sir.
because our audience would like to hear a little bit about the Manipur. What should be done? Nobody is interested in what has happened now. What has happened is happened, but what we can do to go ahead in a much more better manner and a better fashion.
Uh, so at the strategic level, I made a brief mention of this, that
Hmm.
this is this is our future. The Northeast,
Hmm.
looking eastwards at the Southeast Asian economies, and all of them are growing exponentially, sir. This is
Hmm.
where our future trade, our future economic development lies. And for that, the steps that have been taken up in the past decade or so have been phenomenal. The number of roads that have come up, the airports, their numbers have doubled in the last decade or so. You have road infrastructure coming everywhere. Your Trans Arunachal highway, which comes, will be a game changer.
Hmm.
Then you similarly have this trilateral or Asian Highway 1, which is there from India to Myanmar to Thailand, that can connect up right up to Singapore's. It
Okay.
can go, it will go through Malaysia, then it will touch Singapore also. There are just some bridges that need to be done, and but for this disturbance in the last 2.5 years in Myanmar, I'm sure that would have got completed. And
Even COVID affected the.
COVID also affected.
Okay.
First COVID, followed by this. Then along the Indo Myanmar border again, there are plans in place. Like I spoke of the Trans Arunachal highway. A similar highway is being planned in Nagaland. So
Okay.
Nagaland, the terrain is most treacherous amongst all these states. So
Yeah.
if that comes up, which surely it will, that will make a change. Then you have this uh, Jiribam Imphal railway line, which is coming up. It's
Yeah.
93%.
Yeah.
Ninety-three
That's
percent of it is complete, sir. And this is surely going to change things, because
okay.
yes, the traveling time itself will be cut down from 12 hours to 2 hours. And I'm still not speaking of the kind of bulk that can be transported on this.
Yeah.
This railway line, there are also now, there were plans in place to survey further from Imphal towards Myanmar. That survey was to happen, but that is when this trouble started. But surely, once this is behind us, the rail connection will also happen. I spoke of the airports doubling in the northeast, but so have the flights. Today, so Guwahati has about 120 flights operating from it. Um,
Okay.
just about less than a decade back, you had just about 35 flights. So three times that number, more than three times that number. Air
Okay.
connectivity has increased. Um, Similarly, the other bridges that have come across on Brahmaputras. So there was a time when we had only one at Guwahati. Then the second one came at Tezpur. Today we have five of them. Now, this
Okay.
is greatly going to help us as we go ahead. So, these are the changes that I see happening. But more importantly, other than the infrastructure, what has probably gone unnoticed is the large number of people from the Northeast who have gone to rest of the country. They began in
Mainland.
the services industry. So mainland is a word I generally don't use. I keep telling people don't use mainland because here
I,
in the Northeast, we feel there's a why are we not as mainland as rest of
I,
them? We say
I,
rest of India.
I was about to ask you a question that when we connect Northeast via Bangladesh,
Huh.
which is a project which we have been working on for quite some time, we will Calcutta and Tripura and Calcutta and Mizoram will be cross distance, cross fly away. That is the time I'm
Yes,
looking for connectivity of this particular thing.
that's going to happen.
Unfortunately, that project is not. I mean, going ahead as desired. The Bangladesh connectivity project.
Both the rail and the waterway
Yeah,
connectivity, they will prove again game changers for the Northeast.
absolutely, absolutely. So, what do you have to say about the Manipur? Anything you want to talk about Manipur? How to take forward the Manipur situation from here on? Uh,
So
Your a
there have
quick,
been videos and a lot of coverage on the media, each
but
telling of
from
what
your
changes,
perspective,
what
from
what are the recommendations.
from your
Uh,
perspective,
I,
purely from a
I will
security
I will
perspective.
I will start by saying that no amount of additional pumping of security forces is going to help.
Okay.
Most of that, what the security forces needed to do, particularly the
Yeah.
army and Assam Rifle, has been done. Then we
Okay.
have a vast complement of CRPF, BSF, ITBP. All of them have come. Rapid Action Force. All of them have been very
Pumped it.
successful in arresting the situation. Though there is a lot of criticism as to why is there violence despite so much of security forces being there. But the point they don't understand is security forces can't be on every inch of the ground. And it is not that people just move on the roads to go somewhere else if they want to indulge in violence. They can go through the fields, they can go through the forests. It is not
Yeah.
possible. So while I've covered the point of security forces, the more important or more prudent one is actually minds. It is
Yeah.
for the civil society organization, the people. If anybody can solve this problem, it is the people. I will not even talk of the political leaders or the
Okay. I think this video has gone back again. It may be linked to, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think
So I was saying, sir, if there is anybody who can solve this, it is the locals. It is for both the communities to come to the negotiating table. We had a similar violence in the 90s, 93 to 95 of the Nagas and Cookies. I was again
yeah.
here then as a company commander. So that violence was even on a greater scale than this. Uh,
Hmm.
there used to be, this is only about 120, 130 days now. That was for almost 3 years.
Okay.
So there, for 3 years, each village used to have its own defenses dug up, wire obstacles, etc.,
Okay.
to prevent. And there used to be sentries. There used to be sentry posts all on the four corners of the villages, and they used to be doing night duty. All that used to happen. So Manipur has witnessed all this before. But eventually, they had to. Both the parties had to come onto the negotiating table. They spoke, and that's how the violence stopped. So that is precisely what is going to happen. We cannot force this on them. It is for them to realize, and that realization is dawning because today it is the common man who's suffering. So the civil society organizations have a great role to play. Then the women, Mira Paibis, you would have heard of the Mira Paibis and the similar women organization on the cookie side also. Women play a very great role in Manipur's in shaping the minds of the youth, and the youth and even the people at large listen to the women folk. So probably they also should be getting into this. Then of course you have the political dimensions where we need some political announcements. Quite a few of them have been done,
Hmm.
but some more in terms of reaching out to the people to establish that connect.
Okay.
Then rehabilitation of all these people who are there. All that has started. It has started for the last 10 days. There are shelters being made for the people. Then the education schools, after a lot of talks with the people, the schools have started. That was a major area of concerns. Then, of course, is to ensure that the supplies or essentials reach the remote part of the states. There are
Yes.
people now from both communities again preventing community essential goods from going. And again, Manipur is not new to roadblocks. You'd
Mhm.
have heard of road blockades for 1 year, 1.5 years. So
Yeah,
they're
that's
used to
right.
this. So those have to go. I think these are the important points that I
Uh,
wanted to highlight.
one, yeah. So I think you had a very comprehensive discussion on border management. Plus, in the end, I could not stop myself from asking you to cover a little bit about the Manipur issue. The only issue which has been now bugging people is the arms which have gone out and the recovery of those arms, etc., and ammunition. That is, I think, the security forces' major challenge, as you also highlighted that that could spoil the party if it lands in the hands of terrorists and others. Then it will be a problem as far as managing the situation is concerned. So with that, we will now move on to the question answers. I mean, question session. We have a number of questions. We'll take few. Uh, First question is by Kumar Gopalan. What is the influence of Arkan Army? Although it is not related to this, in the below mentioned area, Northeast and Manipur, Myanmar, Bangladesh. 1/2 question. And the second question is, how will Bharat tackle the Arakan army? Although it doesn't really come into your domain, but if you want to answer, you can answer it. We can skip this question here.
Kumar, Arakan Army is not an area of concern for us. It is
Yeah.
surely a concern for the Myanmar Army.
Mhm.
While they when they started, it was all in the eastern part of the country. But then they moved toward the Arakan area, which is onto the west, and that is how the Rohingya problem also started. So it is for the Myanmar Army. It's not a problem for us in the northeast.
So we'll not interfere into somebody else's internal affairs. Shrithik Kothari is asking, honored to interact directly with the DG. Thank you, Dushan sir. Sir, can you please elucidate the role of Burmese citizens in the Manipur issue? Heard that they have been infiltrating and interfering. Yeah, this is something which, yeah, this is
Uh,
also a narrative going around. You could,
I'll just
uh,
clarify.
yeah.
Now, uh, we began by stating that the borders are open, absolutely open, not just porous, and movement of people have been happening for decades. It is not that it is just happening; it has come to notice now, but it has been happening for quite some time. But got a little increased after the disturbed situation in Myanmar.
Hmm.
So I did speak about that the intensity of violence. Now, if you look at the map of Myanmar, where all is the violence happening today? And when I say violence, it is people who have taken up arms against the Myanmar army. It is largely in this Sagaing Chin belt which borders us. It is also along Yangon and south of it. It is also on the Thai border. So it is at these three places where the maximum fighting between the Myanmar army and the PDF is happening.
Okay.
In our area, we also have something called as the Chin National Army (CNA).
Hmm.
Now, whenever the fighting increases, these people come across to here to our side, and that is when you have large numbers, as you must have read in the media recently, about 2 or 3 weeks back, on a particular day 728 of them came, and we reported it to the state. Thereafter, after about 10-12 days, we were able to send them back. When the fighting subsided, they went back. That is why I said, don't take this. Most of these people who are coming in as a consequence of the fighting will go back eventually. Most of them will.
Okay. So we'll now get back to the next question, which is by Brigadier Bhatia. Relevance of ILP PAP has changed. It is hindering economic development and barrier to national integration. also restrict free movement of people, trade, ideas, influence, and tourism opportunities. Your comments.
Rakeshji, this inner line permit, as you are aware, is there in all these four states that we spoke of. Initially, it was there only uh, in Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, and Mizoram. But beginning 2020 December, it also got, even Manipur got this inner line permit. The history of this, it's actually a legacy of the British. It's a legacy of the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act of 1873, by virtue of which uh, the British made a geographical divide where they didn't want people to go into these areas, um, essentially to stop them from exploiting the natural resources that were there: tea, timber, um, teak, then the elephants, ivory, that is. These are the resources that they were looking at. And then after independence, we continued with this. Then this demand for inner line permit came up in Manipur, early part of, in fact, somewhere around 2001. And then after about 2 decades, it got implemented in Manipur as well. Your particular question of does it act as a barrier to restrict movement of people? It's not a barrier. It is just like a permit system. Whenever you arrive in any of these states, you can get it online, you can get it at the airports when you disembark, and it is for a particular period of time. And why this is continued is essentially to stop people from the rest of the country to come here and buy land and indulge in businesses in a big way. Thereby, the locals
Yeah,
felt that they would get outnumbered economically, they would not be doing too well. That is why this has been implemented. So free movement, surely it is not restricting, but yes, there is a psychological effect of this.
it's a barrier
Whenever
in the mind of one.
it's a barrier
You
in
have
the
to.
mind.
Yeah, it's like a
Yes,
visa.
yeah,
It's
it's
like
like
taking a visa. Yeah.
but today, if you come and see, there are all kinds of industries, smaller ones, which have established shop here. So are other businesses who are coming here. In fact, FICCI, I attended a conference of FICCI last year in Guwahati, where they showed on a scale how exponentially it has been increasing in the last 5 to 6 years, the kind of investments that have been happening despite the inner line permit system.
Yeah, we have question from our vice chairman. Unlike Eastern Ladakh, very little is spoken about infrastructure along the border with Myanmar. Can you elaborate on as to what is being done? Is Mejan Chaturvedi, Sappers national champion of surfing, etc., I mean, water sports, वगैरह. A very motivated person, and he has been the guiding light for our think tank actually. So
General Ajay sir, good evening, sir. I did, in passing, speak about the infrastructure development that is happening here in the Northeast. I spoke of the bridges over Brahmaputra. I spoke of the waterways movement that is happening. Then I spoke of the roads, additional roads that are coming up, Trans Arunachal, the one in Nagaland, uh, then the railway line of Manipur. Similar railway line is also coming in Mizoram. Then you have the Kaladan multimodal uh, project, which will connect from Calcutta. It comes to Sitwe and then comes into Mizoram. Now, 94% or almost 99% now of what work had to be done on our part, that is on our soil in Mizoram, has been done. Um, Across, again, because of COVID, it suddenly stopped. The road that needed to be taken to Sitwe, that work got interfered because of first the COVID, and then there was some other disturbances. But now the contract has been given to some of the locals there, and it is underway. So maybe in a year or two, that also should be functional, and that again will change the things here in the Northeast.
okay, I think this is just to um, inflate our ego. I'd like to commend DG Sir for his appearances at media forums, conferences, and his media interactions, including the talk. It helps in info warfare and civilians to get more about the Assam rifle. Okay, we need not mention it as an information warfare. It is the true fact which we are trying to tell the people. A correct narrative, the correct situation on the ground is what we should look at. Coming down to another question, which, yeah, a question from Rishi Atre. He's from Bangalore. There are several tribes like Karbi, Dhimsa, Tangkul that are getting classified as Naga. What is the effect on the region and relations with Myanmar? Yeah, you could just cover it briefly, although it is.
No, I'll see. Tangkul is already a Naga tribe. There are 35 recognized Naga tribes,
No, I have heard
of
44.
which of which
I read somewhere 44. Okay.
there are 35 recognized, but there are more which
Yeah.
want to also be called as Naga. But in this, I'm clarifying Tangkul is a Naga tribe which is there in northern Manipur.
Yeah.
So 16 of them, of the Nagas, are in Nagaland, 15 of them in Manipur. There are four of them in Arunachal Pradesh. There are two, three of them in Assam, and of course there are another four, five of them in Myanmar. So this is the widespread. So the Naga demand itself for a greater Nagaland, I'm just clarifying here, though it is not connected to this question. While Nagaland itself is about 16,700 square kilometers, but the greater Nagaland that they're asking for is five times this size,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
I
it transcends,
don't
it goes
have I
across
don't have the
40
I
states.
don't have the map, otherwise I would have shown it to them. Yeah.
So, and it is surely not affecting our relationship with Naga. Like I said, these people have their transborder linkages. I spoke of the Kaimungan tribe. You similarly have Konyaks, who
Yeah.
65% are in India, 35% in Myanmar. So when you speak to them, these people in these very remote areas, their idea of nationhood is uh, is, is, let's say, Tangkul, or for that matter Konyak. For them, that is what nation. India and Bangladesh or Myanmar comes after that,
Much after that.
much after that.
It's a it's a typical tribal law which says that me, my family, my tribe, and then when it comes to region, it's my region, and so it's like that. The tribal laws are same whether you go to Afghanistan or whether you come to this place. Minor modifications here and there. Otherwise, you call it as Pashtunwali, Pakhtunwali. Here it is the Nagas code of conduct, etc. So you have just related this question. I am just flashing, but to say that these things are not to be discussed if we have to do something like that. And there is no need as of now. As of now, there is no need.
Before coming to this questions, I would also like to add, having said this about what the the tribes feel about them, they are wonderful peoples. They are possibly the best at heart, very straightforward, mean very good, and they can be your best of your friends. So
Yeah.
if I was given a chance, I would rather not come back to mainland, what you call, and if they would keep me here in the northeast, I would be very
Actually,
happy.
there are some very, very touching stories of people from the heart of India actually having very deep linkages with Nagaland. I mean, Nagaland and northeastern states, where they are revered. These people are actually revered by the people of Nagaland, etc. I mean, there's a Colonel Saab who's actually celebrated there in that part of the world because of the activities which he has done there, the kind of
Kal ipi ke pilles.
absolutely. I didn't want to tell the name, but yeah. So there are these stories also. This is the question which there is a plan to build highways. We have already answered this thing, but his question is how might the dynamics in the Northeast change because of the infrastructure development, etc. What will be the people to people reaction, basically tribe to tribe reaction, etc. on this?
I don't think the dynamics would change much, because the new generation thinks very differently from what the older our generation people who are stuck up in time.
Mhm.
When I interact with the newer generation, for them, they're not very much attached emotionally to what ethnicity they belong. They are more interested in quality education, getting jobs, and leading a better life than what their parents and grandparents did. Uh, so once these connectivity things improve, surely there'll be more movement of people. It'll, to my mind, help in at least rest of the country. When they come here, people, when they come here, they understand Northeast better. Today, that's a gray zone. People don't know. People are not aware of the Northeast. While
Absolutely.
while large number of people from the Northeast are going to rest of the country, but the reverse isn't happening. So
Yeah.
this particular aspect will surely help in broadening the
Uh,
horizon.
yeah. Uh, Last but one question. Today, things need not be true as long as they are believed. Is it time for Assam Rifle to launch a responsive, credible social media platform which responds with truth by immediately doing fact check? Yeah, this is a good question. I think needs a deliberation. All the other forces have got their, I mean, even Northern Command, Eastern Command, Naval Command, etc., have their own Twitter handles and Facebook pages, etc. What do you have to say on this?
We have our social, we have a Instagram, we have a Facebook, we have all our social
Yeah,
media
yeah,
websites on which we
yeah,
are quite
yeah.
active. In fact,
But that,
just
but
yesterday
that,
our Facebook was blocked. Day before yesterday our Instagram was blocked. And then
okay.
because of the large viewership, uh,
Hmm.
we were putting out facts as they were, which
Okay,
was not liked by certain people. And today, you would have read in the papers also. So someone who spoke in some derogatory manner against us, we've served a legal notice to him also.
good,
So
good, good.
we are doing that, because this cannot, this blame game for no fault of ours cannot go on endlessly, because our people, after all, mean the good for Manipur and Northeast as a whole.
Yeah. So that was this. Last question is a very interesting question. Again, coming from Colonel R.P. Singh. Why can't be one command to handle Northeast current situation? Why current situation? If you have to do something, then it has to be permanent nature. Otherwise, it becomes a task force or mission based activity or mission based structure. So I don't know. What is your views on this?
No, I couldn't get. Is he talking of the Northeast entirely, Narpi sir, or is he talking of Manipur only? So I'm not too sure what is the
Northeast,
meaning in this.
Northeast. The entire Northeast gets uh, comes under one command. It is already under the Eastern Command if you
It's
take the
already on the
army,
Eastern Commands.
but probably he's now referring to the unified command which we have, say, in the Northeast, which sits every I think every year once or twice in Guwahati, something like that. If it can come up closer to this particular region, at least these four major states, and review the situation, get hold of things, a civil military, I would put it more, not more as a security forces, but a civil military uh, organization which overlooks the entire in the Guwahati. It is chaired by the corps commander. Their
Yes, four core
for
commander chairs that.
four corps commander chairs that. Similar kind of a thing could happen here with the three corps commander or the DG, whichever way. I mean, the arrangements would have to be worked out as to how. Now, since the army is not involved in the internal security, also, then possibly the DG could be the DG could be part of this particular. Then you will have the security forces, state police forces, all of them coming under, you know, one grid. Possible. This is the way. I
So,
mean, I'm
sir,
looking at it.
loosely, like you brought, or you already brought it out, and loosely it is happening. Like Eastern Command is
Okay.
looking after this, but
Mhm.
specific to areas like you spoke of this one being one at Guwahati, which is
Yeah.
chaired by the GOC 4 Corps, was essentially looking at the insurgency in Assam and
Mm.
the Assam bordering the other states, Assam
Yeah.
bordering
Correct.
Arunachal, Nagaland, and Manipur in that order.
Yeah.
So that is what it was looking at. But there is what works for 4 core. A similar setup is there. Even 3 core does that
Mm-hmm.
for the other states,
Okay.
and both of them are eventually being looked at by the Eastern
No,
Army commanders. It is happening
I
in
was
some
looking
way.
at. I was looking at since you said that three core is now almost pulled out of the internal security grid. then maybe there is a need to change that. See, once you don't have the stakes directly into that particular area, then your level of involvement reduces. Whereas if the DGAR is handling everything, then maybe the DG could be the. I mean, this is just a thought which came to the people's mind. I'm aware of the other dynamics of it. I'm not going to discuss this on on this platform. That is something else which we are having. I mean, it's not worth talking about that thing. You are better aware of it now that you are in the driver's chair there. But something like that is what he was referring to. A much more closer organization which looks at the entire thing uh, from a perspective of on the ground.
Okay, sir.
More detached you are. You are generally not aware of the
Okay.
local dynamics. So something like what is happening in 4 core, 3 core was doing it, but is the 3 core now that much involved? I'm not aware of. So maybe if 3 core is doing the job, fine, absolutely.
Yes, I like to clarify the three core is still doing the job.
Okay,
Three core is doing both. It's looking after the northern borders as also looking after the insurgency and of course the internal.
because
Um,
3 core is the largest core, in fact, in that part,
yes,
part of it. It's got its boundaries are extending from, I don't know, from where to where. 4 core, 4 core has shrunk to a very narrow area, and 3 core has taken on bulk of the rest. Bulk of,
there, there's a
we call
story.
it.
So if three
Yeah,
core was an army, it would be 26 largest armies.
yeah. And they call it as rest of Arunachal Pradesh, and thereafter Myanmar. I mean, you have the Myanmar border also under them, including Tripura. Everything is under 3 core actually. So three
Yes,
core is a huge, huge space. Bulk of the northeast is under 3 core. So that is why I was saying that maybe a closer coordination at the level of the northeast four troubled states. This
sir.
is what I'm looking at. Okay, I think we have finished all our questions. It was a very nice discussion we had, and lovely to have you, Jan Nair. We shall
Thank you.
meet. We shall meet again very soon in case if something else develops. Otherwise,
Sir.
thanks a lot. We will end our broadcast by playing our normal. Uh, thank you note and request to the people to please like subscribe to our channel. We've just started about 2 months back, but I'm sure we are growing quite fast, and we should be able to you should be able to encourage us to do get more such educative videos whereby you can enhance your knowledge. It's a totally veteran based think tank. Retired officers, retired veterans have come together to bring this idea of discussion to the public, share their knowledge, and also bring in current knowledge from existing people who are there in the saddle. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.